Okay, so great. So let's get started. Your first task will be converting, and before you start, do you have your VPN connected?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So your first task will be converting an implementation of the priority queue data structure from Java to Python, and
Okay.
you will do this without the AI support. And your second task will be converting an implementation of the try data structure from Java to Python, and you will do that one with the AI support. We'll also take a break between the two tasks since the session is about 2 hours. So first, let me tell you about the code translation task. So the task is to produce a complete and working Python translation within 30 minutes. And by complete, I mean that all of the functionality and documentation from the Java code should be translated. And by working, I mean that the Python code should be tested for correctness.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, there's more work to do to accomplish an absolutely perfect translation than what can be done in 30 minutes. So really, I'm just asking you to do as much as you can in the time that you have.
Sure.
But there may be trade-offs in how you spend your time, such as whether you choose to translate all of the functionality first or to translate a portion of it while testing it to make sure it works. How you
Okay.
navigate this trade-off is completely up to you.
And I'm
Uh,
allowed to use Google or anything, right? If I'm
yes, yes.
okay.
So you'll be using an online version of the VS Code editor. It has a few minor differences as compared to the desktop app. But in general, all of the menu commands and keystrokes are available.
That's
We
fine.
also have the Java and Python installed, so you can run and test your code. Uh,
Okay.
I won't be able to answer any technical questions about the code or what it's supposed to do, but I can tell you that the Java implementation is correct.
Okay.
Uh, when you make the translation, please try to preserve the naming of the class and the method names, but we're less
Okay.
concerned with how you name your variables.
Okay.
Also, you can use any and whatever resources you feel would be useful, such as searching the web or Stack Overflow or
Yeah.
running any of the code. You can run the code because we have both Java and Python installed.
Got it.
So the task is 30 minutes. So I'll give you a 5-minute warning when time is almost up.
Yeah.
Um, we also ask that as you work on the task, you kindly think out loud and tell us what you're thinking and what you're doing. This would really help us understanding how you approach the task and what you're thinking as you do what you do. If you're quiet, I'll kindly remind you to keep thinking out loud if it's
Sure.
okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any questions before we start?
Nah, I don't have any questions there. I'm good.
Okay. So for the first task, you will be translating the priority queue data structure from Java to Python. And this one is without the AI support. So I have pinned you the link to the editor in the chat. If you can just open that link and share your screen.
Oh, I have to share my screen.
Yeah.
See. Okay. So you able to see, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's the
So
Java implementation.
yes, and you have to put your solution in the priority queue.py file.
Okay.
Okay. So
I can start reading, right?
yes, so you have 30 minutes. I'll mute myself and I will keep taking some notes, so don't get distracted by that. And I will give you a 5-minute warning when we approach that.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll
so
just give
let's
you a
start.
heads up that I have forgotten the implementation of priority queue altogether. So this is like totally unknown, unseen code to me. Okay, just a heads up.
That's fine. Okay.
If that helps with the study, right? Okay.
Okay.
So all I'm doing right now is I'm just reading through the main methods, like all the methods that you have to understand what exactly like ballpark what the class is doing. So I can see that there's like an insert and remove method, which I think I'm going to target first. I think look at this method and say, okay, this is a nice to have fancy method, add all. This method seems a little cryptic to me, hippify. So I'm not sure what is hippify, but I'm assuming that it's gonna get used because it's a private method. So I'm gonna assume that it gets used somewhere internally. Okay. Okay, because it's extending comparable, so I'm assuming you're getting a lot of methods because I have some idea on inheritance. I'm assuming it's getting a lot of methods inherited. It's using generics, which I've sort of forgotten, but I'm assuming that I'm okay without the generics because Python is not a strongly typed language, so I don't have to worry about it. Yes, I can use type system in Python, but I'm just gonna ignore that part for now. So I'm assuming that when I do my implementation, I can have type errors, right? But I'm also sort of positive that I can sort of sprinkle in MyPy later and then just make it type safe. That's how I'm thinking about it. I'm sort of deciding between whether I should be doing classes or I should be doing modules. I have slightly forgotten how classes work in Python, but what I'm gonna do is I'm assuming I can open one more window, so I'll just keep these two windows so I can keep going back and forth between them. Right, so I think I'm just gonna go through the code. You're basically doing an object of type list, then you're adding add, and then you're checking that. It's the size. Adding. Uh, I have no idea what this method is doing. Like just looking at it, I just wish that the documentation was more than okay, because I think this is just this instruction is pretty useless because the method is insert. So just repeating the fact that this is inserting is basically useless. I wish it would have explained the internals of the code rather than just saying that it's inserting. Uh, It's calculating the parent index. I have no idea why the parent index is half of this. Like why the parent index is half of the length. Uh, okay, so I'm not really able to wrap my head around, so I'm just gonna try copy pasting. So I'm just gonna try to brute force my way in. Okay, it's a class. Okay, I have really forgotten how to write Python classes in the best possible manner. So I'm just gonna quickly go through. Class name, that's what I remember. Okay, so I'm just gonna do class priority view. And then I think there is a init in Python. The init takes self as the first argument, if I remember correctly. So that's what I remember. I guess self dot, what are you calling it? Keep is equal to Python has a way of doing list. So this is a list. Yeah, because you're doing array list as well. I don't remember really what's the difference between a Python list versus an array list. So I'm just doing a regular list here. I don't think yeah, it's not a set, so I think we're good. So I'm gonna just try writing a method for insert. Basically take self, an item that needs to be inserted. Then I'm just gonna copy paste this thing. So size. So I'm just copy pasting really at this point of time because I don't understand the method well enough. So I'm just copy pasting. If I would have understand the method, then I would have tried to do this in a little more. I would have tried to change the code, but since I don't understand the code well enough, I'm just gonna do brute force this. So I'm just gonna do that. And then you're adding. So got the sub dot. Be trying to remember. I'm assuming that there is a method called insert in Python. I think extend or insert. I think insert. it's index and element, index is 0, so we have index is 3. We want to end up with series. Okay, yeah. So as usual, when I'm not working in a programming language, I forget. So he's saying while this is greater than 0. I'm trying to remember if there's a while loop in Python. I don't think there is while in Python. Is there a while? Yeah, while is there in Python? So while size is less than 0, then that was your argument. Uh, Greater than 0, you're taking the. Actually, let me read the code. Parent index is this much. You're getting the parent from the syntax, and you're saying compared to. Okay, this is where I think this gets tricky because you want to compare. This is less than parent dot compare item is less than 0. Does compare to this and this. Okay. So you're just doing a swap, I think, here. The implementation. Okay. Thing. I'm trying to remember. Super fast. Yeah. I'm trying to find documentation for. I know you can have extra classes. I'm trying to remember what is the Python equivalent of comparable. Okay, you can do equal methods if possible. Object compare. Not sure if it's complete, but you want to define greater than from tools. So I'm trying to remember. Okay, not this one. Okay. Given a class defining one or more attributes of this class applies the rest. It's defined one of the should apply an equal method. Okay, so it looks useful, but not really. Anyways, I'll just do the basic part and then I'll worry about how to do the present event. Index is equal to be doing index minus 1 by 2. Okay, for the size, right? Why did we call it index? Just gonna call it index as well then. Index minus 1 by 2. So we got this thing, and then item equal to sometime. Try to get the index. So we should have been append after the thinking serves that using this. And then item compared to item. Feel like you probably have a compare method defined somewhere. You can write and AP5. No, so it's assuming this is extending comparable. So I'm assuming that you're just using the compare method of the underlying thing. Uh, so The string compared to only the string. So I'm trying to read documentation of what comparable compared to is. Okay. Another comparison. Equal is this thing. Null pointer. One adds a key and B. The mathematics or something. Okay. Compares object resident to less than equal to more than specified object compared to. Okay, so I'm assuming that I don't have to worry about it, and if I just do comparison between two objects in Python, that should take care of it. Is to compare two objects for identify. Comparing one return false to identify score. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a compare to method here that I know I have not implemented, but I'll eventually implement. So compare to item 1, item 2. I'll just give it a pass. So eventually I'll pass on this method. It's a parent index, parent item that compare to, and then did I get my item everywhere? Item, okay. Less than 0. So if it's less than 0, then do this. If it's not less than 0, then you're doing break, right? So else break. So this I can do. And now it's the logic. Easier if I just copy paste this. So saying heap.set parent index to a heap.set index is equal to parent index. So this I can just replace with this. So this one heap.set. Okay, so now you're just setting things. Okay, so you're just saying so heap set. You're saying just insert on the parent index item. You're saying so heap set index and so you're just swapping them out. Parent item. Okay. So the only thing that I'm a little dicey about is this compared to, like how this compared to is going to work, because I don't know what the equivalent Python definition is, but I think the rest of it is pretty straightforward. I think I'm gonna just do this. This is gonna be pretty straightforward. I'm just gonna copy paste these things. So the next one is remove F, remove. I'm just gonna self. So what are you taking it to remove? Remove the highest priority item. Okay. If heap dot size is equal to 1, then if length of the self dot heap is equal to 0, then return. Don't even need to return null. I'm not sure how the checking is working here. Like, is this expected that if nothing is there, then you just basically get a null object? But like return is basically, so I'm gonna return none if yours this. But like I could have just done very well empty return here. Index. So I'm just copy pasting the code now at this point of time, and because I don't understand this logic fully enough. If I understood this logic, I would have coded this a little bit differently. because I'm not like trying to refactor the code. I'm just trying to just finish the task right now. So basically saying get the index. So okay, so you're swapping out the last item with the first element. You did get 0. So this. I mean, honestly, my thoughts at this point of time is rather than me wasting a bunch of time, if AI could have just basically translated this from one language, if they would have understood the AST tree at this point of time, AI could have just replaced this for me, because I'm not putting any smart thoughts here. I'm just basically just swapping the code now. If I understood this code, then I would have done this differently, but I'm just replacing this code now at this point of time. You're basically saying insert on this with stuff.heap. I'm just basically at this point of time, it's just moving the syntax at this point of time. It's translating from one to another. I am not sure what is the remove command in Python. Okay, there is a command called remove. So I'm assuming that you can do this after heap.remove, and then I got the index. Then I'm not sure what heapify is that at this point of time, but I will figure this out. So no, just that these ones won't work. Okay, so then yeah, that's pretty much it. From a remove perspective, size is pretty straightforward. I'm not sure why do we even have size implemented, but oh, I don't need this. So oh, because you don't have Vim. If I had Vim extension, then I would have basically done a bunch of this work by just using Vim. Size method, size of the functions, handles it all itself. So, but so then these should be pretty straightforward as well now. I'm just gonna copy a bunch of them in one shot, because I think a bunch of them are pretty straightforward to work with. Big sub heap so I'm not really copying the documentation, because the documentation I feel is pretty self-explanatory. Like I don't see a one-line comment on is empty makes any difference. If it's the method name is pretty straightforward to not have that comment here. I'm assuming is empty basically means that whether the length of the heap is empty or not. So I'm just gonna do return if so sub dot heap is equal to 0, then return true. I don't even remember what's the lambda here, but I'm just gonna, this can be made better, but I'm just gonna do this. I'm assuming it's a Boolean. Let's return false. But I'm sure there's a one-liner for this. I'm just trying to finish my task here. I'm assuming enumerate is also pretty straightforward. It's basically what's the enumerate doing? So I'm gonna come back to enumerate later. I think it's a little tricky. So it's basically adding this to this. This is okay. So f add this kind of collection. Okay, zoom item and collection. Again, I'm not type checking, but it's not crazy. Can do this relatively easily. I'll have to do MyPy for this. Insert that element. Okay. So that's, okay, and then enumerate is basically creating one more. Again, I have no idea what this method is doing well enough. Provide all results in the priority queue in order. I'm not even sure what results here mean. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just re-implement this. So enumerate, then so saved equal to and not sure how you can. It's a clone in Python. Okay, copy method. Okay, so I'm just gonna use copy method. I'm not 100% sure about the syntax, but I'm assuming that this is the syntax. Then you're just basically creating another one. Results. Creating an empty one. Okay. While heap is not empty. Is empty. Okay. Oops. The number 8. Which one is not empty? Heap. Okay, so I'll serve that. Heap is empty. This should have gotten me this method. No, it's not the method on heap. While heap is not empty. Heap is empty. And what's a little odd? I'm not sure why is it calling while heap is empty and not it's calling this is empty. But I'm assuming that this is I'm assuming that I'm not sure why I want to believe that rather than heap is empty, this was a method on this is empty, but I'm assuming that this is what you wanted, that like you wanted to check whether the self.heap is empty. So I'm just gonna do while self.heap. What are you doing while is it empty? While self.heap. I'm assuming that's the logic. I'm not 100% sure at this point of time. I would have assumed that this was not heap is empty, but while this dot is empty. But I'm assuming that like while heap is empty, so it's not. So you're flipping the logic here. So I'm assuming that you're assuming that while the length of the heap is greater than 0, keep doing this. That's the logic. But you're not decreasing the. You're not okay. So you're calling the remove method. Okay.
We do have like 5 minutes remaining.
Okay. Thanks, man. So assuming results that add removes results was this, and I think append was the method here. Append dot remove dot remove append, and then dot remove was returning this. Okay, heap is equal to saved heap. Okay, dot heap. So I think one of the reasons that's slightly putting me off is you using heap, and heap is basically this dot heap. So I think the lack of this is making a conversion a little bit tricky for me. That's fine. That's just a personal preference. And then this, this, yeah, and this. What else remains now? I think the only one that I don't think I'll be able to get to is the hippie method. And I won't be able to implement my compare to method. But compare to objects. I'm not gonna try to shoot for hippie. And I figure out the func tools. Must be a call method. Comparison method can by using it is return true if x is y. Okay, so they don't have this thing, but I'm assuming that you can just replace this with greater than. So I'm assuming that compare method is just simply it should be pretty straightforward. You just have to implement greater than less to. Right, so you just have to implement CT or and LT. So it's just some combination of greater than and less than. I have no idea about this one. So F VP5 so index and size. If size is greater than 0, left index. If left index is size and self dot heap dot get. Oops. Just going to do and greater than 0, then I'm doing this. And self and heap. Okay, that's my son in the background. Is not, I think that's what the Python equivalent is. Set is going to be insert. Yeah, I think that's very much it.
Yeah, we're actually done with the time as well.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I did not
No,
realize
no
that.
worries.
Okay.
No.
I think yeah, this is my first pass. Now I just basically take a look to basically make sure that the I'm not sure why this ID is not showing that if I have any like I'm sure there's a bunch of issues in terms of like the lots of like there are a bunch of source code issues. Like I'm sure I've mixed up
Yeah, I think that's fine
syntaxes
because
somewhere.
we don't even expect like we understand like
Yeah.
30 minutes is too less a time to actually, create a perfectly working code. But I do have a survey based on the task that you just
Yeah.
completed. So I have pinned
Yeah,
you the link
like
for
just
that.
just to give you a heads up, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm sure you'll find like people who have been coding on a regular basis, like they'll probably be, or people who are preparing, they'll basically be aware of priority queue implementations. If you kind of sort of have given it to someone who's actively coding, this should have been relatively straightforward, I think.
Okay, so like
I just
members in
basically
your
took it
team,
as a task. See what?
you said members in your team would be like they
No, no,
are
I would say that I can like at least give a couple of names that were like, working on the ALG side on our side who would probably be more familiar with some of this work or someone who's
Mhm.
basically like otherwise people who are basically actively preparing for interviews they'd probably be more
Yeah.
aware of these because you kind of sort of have to keep them on your fingertips. I sort of approach it as a problem that like this is a part of code that I've never seen before. So even though it's an
Mhm.
algorithm problem, I just approach it as something that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Just to
No,
keep
I'll
it
actually reach out to
yeah.
you for those names because we would love
Yeah.
to like interview them as well.
Sure.
So I'll reach out to you separately on Slack for like
Mm-hmm.
other references.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you can just like open the Survey Gizmo link
You sent it on this one,
on
right?
WebEx.
Where is the Mexico chat? I
Yeah.
guess over to the other window. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Do I
you
have an
are
ID or just my name?
yeah, no, you are P1818
Yeah.
P18.
That's
This
it.
one was no AI and
Mm-hmm.
priority queue.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and if you can just like think out loud while you're filling this as well.
Okay. How mentally demanding was the task? 20 is very high, right? I would say 10ish. I mean, to me, it was just an unknown piece of code. If it was, again, the setting was very relaxing. So I wasn't too worried about it. Yes, but if I was kind of sort of doing it for an interview, this would have been like I would have probably did a 20. But like
Yeah.
it was not like a crazy complicated piece of code. So it wasn't.
Mhm.
I would say again 10. It wasn't like super hard. It wasn't rushed. If I would have to do it in my normal job, like I would have taken a day to complete this task and not 30 minutes
Okay.
if I had to do this in a regular job. So I mean, for this setting, I think it was. I mean, I guess it was relative, right? If you kind of sort of think about if I had to do it in my normal job setting, this was very rushed, right?
Hmm.
If I had to do it for an interview, it was very slow. Right? From
Okay.
an interview perspective, it was
Yeah.
very slow. But like just for this task, I think it was fine, right? I think I would say 5. I mean, I think after this, it would have just taken a couple of passes of sort of testing,
Hmm.
just to sort of iron out the kinks. But I think I was relatively happy that I was able to map all the methods back. So I think the only thing that's missing is like the first pass of testing and the second pass of testing. I was happy. Uh, Not so much. I mean, I think it was okay. The methods were pretty straightforward. It was a relatively small piece of code that I had some idea about. At least I had some idea about, well, the fact that I kind of sort of knew both the languages, Java and Python, it wasn't like a total unknown. I mean, I have worked, or I've touched Java like 5 years ago, so
Hmm.
none of the interfaces were new, none of the comparables, etc. No, none of that stuff was new. I kind of sort of had ballpark ideas. I was just finding the right, uh, like I was just basically doing the right searches on Google. So I wasn't crazy. Uh, I would say I wasn't stressed out. Again, it depends on what setting you're doing it in. If I would have to implement this quickly for an interview, I would have been very stressed out. If I would have had to do it for my regular job, I would have been very relaxed. So this was not. Uh, you allocated your time. I can kind of sort of walk through. scope the methods first, right? So like what all methods were there, and then sort of try to map those methods were. So because I knew this was going to be a mapping task, so I did not try to understand in the first place. I started to scope the methods, and then I tried to understanding the code. Otherwise, I would have, if I would have done this for a regular job, right? I would have understood the code first. I wouldn't have, if time was not an issue, I would have tried to understand the code first, go through it a few times, then sort of scope the methods. So it was the other way around because it was a time angle associated with it. I scoped the method first and then sort of map the methods in Python and implemented it. So, I think a little, well, I don't know what's the difference between a little and a somewhat, but I think a little, like, I mean, I get it that what you're trying to do, and like, I did not get the priority queue implementation part, I would say. So from that perspective, I don't think I understood the code, but I got it that you were just doing some sort of queue, right? So you were inserting it and moving it. So you got that part, but not.
Yeah.
I think there's probably lack of clean documentation. Um, docs were repeating the method names. Right? I mean, just like the way you said, right? Like the coding was not a reflection on my ability. I'm assuming that we're taking it in the same spirit that the lack of documentation is basically somewhat a variance and etc.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, like the docs were basically just repeating method names and not the code logic, right? Like or the code logic or the finer details, right? Like of the like. That's pretty much it. I think that was pretty much it. I don't know if I have. No, I think like if you replay this interview, I think I've been verbose enough. So
Yeah.
You should probably get what you want. Okay, that's pretty much it, right?
Okay. Yes.
On the first task, yeah.
Yes. So can you please like close the VS Code windows on the server once?
Oh, I'm hoping that this got saved.
I think it saves automatically, but
okay. I closed one window, something.
yeah, can you just make
That's
sure by
the
opening the
Java.
periodic? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's there. It's there.
Okay.
It's there. Okay. Yeah. Leave page.
Okay. So before we move on to the second task, if you want to take like a 5-10 minute break, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, in general, like I have general questions, like not to break so much, but in general, do you know, is this like the part of, well, just for my own curiosity, right? So, how are you running VS Code on the cloud? Is there like a Docker image that you're running, or how are you guys doing it?
I am not sure because one of the team members he set that up. But I can connect you to him to get more details. But
I'm also curious at how you're managing like the multi-user scenario here, like one user, like are you doing one person at a time, or are you able to do many people at a time?
So I would actually like answer that question after the study, and
okay, that's fine.
I'll also give you like details about what the study is or what we're trying to understand. The reason being like these two tasks, we don't want to influence the participants in any way.
That's right. That's right. The reason why I ask is because I sort of manage a team, and one of the things is we do hosted notebooks, and one of the things that we're considering is can we do hosted VS Code, etc. So that's why I'm trying to understand this.
No, I'll actually connect you to the person who did that because I was not involved in that part, so I won't be able to like explain it to you what exactly happened. But I'll connect you to the person who did all this stuff, so he'll be able to like better explain.
No, that's fine. And do you know that if this eventually sort of flows into some of the work that is happening on conveyor, something that Richard Curry and all are involved with, or is this a different effort?
So this is for a different. This is a separate challenge, and I am personally not aware of the conveyor project that you mentioned. But
No,
I'll like refer you to the challenge as well, but after the study only.
Got it. Okay. No, that's fine. Do you know who eventually owns this? Oh, Rania, right? Okay, Rania eventually owns this, right? Okay, got it. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Okay. I think I should be ready for this. Yeah, I think I should be ready for this. The next
Okay,
one.
perfect.
Mhm.
So for the task 2, we will be translating the try data structure from Java to Python,
Mhm.
this time
Okay.
with the help of an AI code translation system. So this
Mhm.
system is able to automatically translate code from Java to Python, but it's not
Mhm.
a perfect system. So the translated
Okay.
code may contains errors in it. We use the system beforehand to create a Python translation for you, which you'll
Mhm.
see when you open up the editor. How you use this translation to help you complete the task is entirely up to you.
Okay.
Uh, so let me just ping you the link again.
So again, try something that I'm very loosely familiar with.
Mhm.
But I can, again, as I said, right, I can point you to some of the people who basically use priority queues and try on a regular basis. So they will
Okay.
be aware of the
Yeah.
code. But again, I'm going to approach this as something that I've never seen.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me share my screen again.
Yes.
Uh, Once I go through Firefox, open another one. Put this over here. Do you want to start? Oh, you're still recording, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so the try.java has a Java code,
Mhm.
try AI is the AI generated code, and try.py is where you have to put your solution. Okay, so I'm gonna start
I'm sorry,
the 30
which one do I have to which one do I have to put the solution in?
try.py file.
Okay, so that's empty, right? Okay,
Yes,
and
this is
try
empty,
AI.py is the one that you
AI generated,
okay, so
and try.java
okay,
is the source file. Okay, so I'm
okay,
gonna start the 30-minute timer and I'm gonna mute myself.
okay. So try those are free. Okay, so unless I was aware of try in general, the documentation would not have helped me. I mean, that's the kind of person I am. Like this documentation would not have helped me, at least in the 30-minute window. But anyways, like without like a drawing and everything of what a try is and how a try works. But anyways, I'm just gonna approach the code right away. I'm not looking at the structure or the documentation. Uh, because I know try is complicated enough and like it's used for string comparisons, and we have used it in the past, but like, I don't think 5 lines of documentation is going to make me understand try in 5 minutes. Uh, I have to go through it at least 10 times to basically understand this. Uh, so I mean, one thing is this code is definitely more complex than the priority queue one. But okay, we're the children. Keeping a map between a character and a final. Okay. Um, so I'm assuming that this is VS Code, so I should be able to do this. Okay, get it. And I'm assuming we should be able to do this as well because it's VS Code. Okay. Um, so what are you doing in the net is you're basically, so I'm just doing one-to-one mapping. That's basically saying that, like I think one of the big reasons that the AI is losing is basically again the type mapping. But I think it's fine because it's basically converting children into a list, into a map, and word is Boolean. Then it's basically creating the children. Children. So it's basically approaching the problem as being subtitle word. Uh, it's basically messing out the. I'm just gonna start with this. Then I'm gonna move this over here. I'm gonna move the AI file right here. I'm being picky. I'm just gonna because I feel like the AI has done a decently good job of these things. I'm just gonna, uh, that's fine. So I'm not gonna even bother about that. Okay. Is end of word, Okay, so this is try node and try. This was the try node class. Okay, there was a subclass into this. Okay. Class try. Init root is a try node. So I'm just doing one-to-one mapping now. Insert is equal to insert self dot. Okay, so now you're start to map the methods. Insert self and word current is equal to root. Okay. Again, these are basically useless documentations. File in Word, run children's the default. I have no idea. Current is root. You just iterating through the get converting it into a character array. Current beautiful. Okay, this is where I could have used the documentation, like what exactly is happening here. But current dot children. Current is of type root. What does that even mean? Current equal to root? What is root? Okay. Okay, so this definitely has an error. Okay. So this is not so much of a fault of the mapping. I think if this code would have been written like this dot root, this would have been much better. And this is just bad Java code getting converted into Python code. Okay, so current is self.root, and then you're basically saying for ln word, current is equal to current.children, and root is of type node. So there is no method called, okay, now, okay, current.children is a map. That is the default. Key and default value. Okay. I think there's a relatively easy way of doing this rather than doing set default. I think isn't like the get method in Python dictionary better? Yeah, similar with set. Get, but I think the get dictionary method has a way of setting the default value if the key is not found. But anyways, so you're basically saying for each key, get the value. Okay, here insert does not return anything. I'm not sure why is it returning anything over here. So that's one. So I'm at this point of time just finding bugs. Current dot of word is true. So default L. Hash map is used to compute a value of the given value. Okay, so it's saying get children. Get children is a hash map. Okay. I'm not sure why. See for C in current children. It's creating a try node for. Like I have no idea what is happening. Okay. So I'm just gonna do this. I'll read out why is it happening. Anyways, moving on. What you're doing is fine. Okay, so the root would be self.root again. I'm sure I can do a better job of this, replacing the root with self.root, but anyways. Okay, fine, you're doing current to self.root for in this thing, where you're going through the words and word. And current children, okay. Node is equal to noun, and false. Current equal to node. Return, okay. Okay, I'm assuming this method is right. It feels like it's right. Delete. Okay, there's a self current word and index. I'm assuming it's self word, delete root word. Don't think you have to delete this. I don't think you have to do a delete is not returning anything. So it should not return anything. Again, this is a pretty useless documentation. Index is equal to this thing. Current and a word return false. Current word and children return current children. Okay, so it's just checking empty. So it's just doing a Boolean comparison. Okay. Word and index. Current children dot get. Yeah, you could have done the same thing over here. What are you doing? HH. Node is done. Return false. Okay, should delete current node is equal to set dot delete node word index plus one and not node dot end of word. Current children to remove. Current children is this and return false. Is it always going to return false? Oh no, short circuits. There's short circuits here. Okay. And that method looks right. Enumerate I generally hate. But how do I have? We have two enumerates and one merge. Okay, merge is a private method. So merge is not a private method, so I'm not sure why this is underscored here. Okay, that's odd because merge does not get used here as well as here. So I'm assuming that's why they marked it as a private, like underscore. But it should be not underscored. Entry is equal to what is other try enumerate for entry and entries serve dot. I'm not sure why it stood this, but this, and then you don't need to have a return statement here. Okay, and then enumerate. Just enumerate yourself. Create a new array list. Entries. No idea what this method is doing. Enumerate to the. Okay, so what are you doing? Is he doing? No idea what his value or giant. No idea what Python value is. So this is something got messed up over here. Definitely something got messed up over here. Value dot. I'm not sure what this value is. There's something wrong here. Okay, let's go to the other terminal node. Right? Entry node. Entry node entries. Yeah, again the documentation is not helpful. Current is ignored if current entries that append. Hmm. 3.2 string. Tree is a string builder. Tree is a string builder. I'm not sure if art strip was required here, but I'm assuming that it was. Assuming that turns a copy of the string return back to the remover is everything. Yeah, okay. So I'm assuming it's creating a copy and removing. So I'm assuming that's the whole point of the string builder, right? Okay, keys dot current dot children dot keys. That's creating an array out of it. Assuming that this is an array already. Current dot children dot key set. I thought children was a map. So this is gonna give you okay. That's I think you're good because this you don't have to convert to array. This is by default an array of keys. You sort them. Key and keys, entry dot append. I'm not sure why you're using a character over here. Because in the rest of the stuff you did not do any of the character stuff. Okay. Self.enumerate, entry, current children, key, entries, entry.pop. I have no idea what this is. Join root, you could this dot join. I'm not even sure why you're calling a return statement here. I think this is just useless. Enumerate and then return entries. So where do you get entries? Passing this over here. Then for entry in entries, we call self. But this method is definitely messed up because it's expecting 1, 2, 3 arguments. What are you giving it? Where is it getting the node? It's getting a new string builder. Okay, so I'm just gonna remove this. I think I'm gonna remove this. I'm not sure what this is. So I'm gonna remove this and I'm just gonna say I messed something up. I'm just gonna say self.enumerate. So I'm assuming this is the first one. Like you're basically saying that this is a new string, so that's why you're doing that. And then you're going to call sub.root because that's the next argument. And then so I'm assuming this is what you're trying to do here. I'm not sure. Trying to pass the enumerate. I'm not sure why were you doing what you were doing. I'm assuming this is what you were trying to do. Oh no, entries is an empty. Yeah. So I thought what you're trying to do is entries for here. And then you create a string builder, so you don't have a string builder in Python. You pass the root, and then you pass the entries. That's what you were trying to do. I think so. Okay, then we want to come back to this one. Insert. So make sure that wherever root is used, you're using self.root. If I had better control over the IDE, this would have been refactored, so I don't have to waste my time on this. So okay, per character invert, so you're getting the whole array, current dot children, the default, map back to C for scene current children. I don't get that part. What is C here? If you're not able to find one, then character. Okay, this is where I think I am getting confused. Don't think it's current children for sure. Because there's no. It's basically just saying create a new try code. So if it's not able to find one, then it's basically saying that create a new try code. So how do you create a new Python class? I think you just say try code. I know. I think that's what you. Nah. I think it's a new or no. Don't remember. How do you instantiate? No, don't. Okay. So yeah, I think that's what you're saying. That if you're not able to find something, then just create a new one. Yeah, if you're not able to find it, a character, just create a new one. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm sure like, if there are test cases, I don't think I would have run the test cases, but I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's all that good.
Okay. We still have like 9 minutes remaining, so maybe you want to like test it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, do you have any test cases written? No, right?
We don't have any test cases, but you can
Okay,
like
so I can write one.
you can run the file and write your
Yeah,
own
but
test
like I
case.
have to. Yeah, but like I don't understand that. Like the whole point was that I don't understand the file well enough for me to
Mhm.
write test cases and run it. So that would have been really helpful. That if there were any test cases,
Mhm.
like that would have given me an idea of what the code is even supposed to do in the first place. Like I can from the documentation, I think it's saying something, but I'm not 100% sure. Like it's basically saying like what am I supposed to do with the insert, find, and delete methods? Like I can write a bunch of test cases that's doing something, but I'm not sure what to expect in the first place,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if me writing a bunch of tests is going to be really helpful here, like, because I have no idea what the tests are supposed to do in the first place. The class implements the try for storing and retrieval of strings. It's basically builds a trees of nodes where stores paths in the tree from. Yes, try to write something. Another test case that let's try to quick main. And let me see. Let me see. And then let's try taking input. No, it doesn't. Then insert one word. Open it. Is there a get method? Delete, insert doesn't return anything. Does any of the methods return anything? I think I can enumerate. I think enumerate is the only method that prints something back. So I think I can do, what does this do? Hold on. T dot, it's and then I can let's try this. Oh no, this is gonna run in his code. Okay, yeah, this is better. Okay, enumerate missing 3 requirements. Okay, so enumerate is basically saying, oh, you can do enumerate without this thing. Why is it entry node and enumerate is missing 3 required position arguments? If I do enumerate, they should call this one, they should call this one. It's basically saying, oh, it needs entry as well. Hold on, let's get enumerate is messed up. Where is it?
Just a time check. We have 5 minutes left.
Okay, I think I messed up something in the Java code. So I think there's an issue with the Java code as well. So you got 1, 2, 3 now. So entry is empty. If I notice this, entries is entry. Entry, node, and entries. Entry, node, entries. Why is it saying that I'm missing the argument then? Because Python doesn't do overloading. Yeah, I think that was a case. I could do that. So why is it saying? Why are you complaining about that? Missing 3 required position, entry, node, and entries. Entry, node, and entries. Entry, node, and entries. Huh. Oh, let's try this one more time. Did you refresh? Entity, try that. 121, e dot enumerate. I have no idea. Should be calling this method is basically saying it's missing 3 positional arguments, entry, node, and entries. But it's not even printing this statement or this statement for that matter. Yeah, put them around 7. Oh, I mean, print statement is working. Yeah, okay, so this is working. Why is this not working? No, it is missing. Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna try cutting this up. Okay, the keys has no objects called sort. This is in line of 105. Keys has no. Okay. Sorted, and I think you have to return. Oops. Sorted. Mesh. How does that one? Sorted. The sort. Oh, sort.
Are you working on the try ai.py file or the try.py file?
Oh shit. Oh, I was working on the try.py file and I think I did command 50 and it opened up that one. So let me do the undo on this one. Keys. Object has no. Okay, I think there's enough issues for me to debug now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we are
I
also
don't think I'll be able to
time.
figure it out in 2 minutes. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to figure it out in 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna send you the survey for this task.
Okay. I need to show my screen for that right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now I can close this, right?
Yes.
P18 you said, right?
Yes, 18. This one is with AI
This is
and try.
right?
Yeah.
I was slightly more demanding than the last one, so I'll just go with 15. Mainly because try is a much more relatively more complex data structure, and I had no idea about try compared to priority queues. So it was a little more demanding, but it was a little more relaxed because of the AI. The AI, already mapped the things, so I didn't have to worry about it. Again, it wasn't rushed. I think I was more comfortable because like a lot of manual tasks that I did in the first case, I think all of that was already mapped for me. I would say that I'm okay with the running code would have been great, but it's fine as well. I have to work to accomplish your level of performance. Actually, it was relatively low. Like, one, I didn't have to work crazy hard. It's just a matter of just going through the code once to basically make sure that everything is good, and then yeah, I think I could have run the code to basically make sure that all these uh, stupid mistakes that were there, I could have cleaned them up. I wasn't. I wasn't insecure, discouraged, irritated, stressed. It was pretty fine. So reviewing the code. Um, I think that's pretty much it. I think debugging, well, not debugging, but I wouldn't say that because I didn't spend enough time on it. But yeah, that would have been the next pass. So It's not hard. I don't think I even tried to understand try in the first place. The code was already written. Method implementation comparison, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure where I ended up spending most of that time. I'm just thinking, because the code was already written, so I'm not sure where I ended up spending most of my time. I was just going through the methods and just trying to fix the errors. But I don't like, at least in the priority queue, I think I had some understanding of what the code was doing. In this case, I had like zero understanding of what the code was doing. Just trying to do a one-to-one mapping and fixing the thing. I think it was good. I wouldn't say very good, but it was good enough. Yeah. That is what, I mean, I didn't try to be smart about things. But I'm not sure if the, like, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if what else could have been done. Like, honestly, I'm not even sure what could be done. I mean, I don't expect, uh, like, if I would have done this as a person without using AI, I would have basically taken a day, understood the implementation, sort of written my own implementation. So I wouldn't have done a one-to-one mapping. And this is a very realistic problem. Like we had this exact problem, like in Watson Assistant, like a year back. We had a bunch of try code written in Java, and we were trying to map it back to Python.
Okay.
Right. So we were basically trying to think through how we would approach it. Right. So
Right.
this
So
was
you
exactly
spend
the
more time
problem
on
that we
thinking
had
and
to map
understanding
the,
the code, and then you started
yeah.
porting it over. Okay.
Yeah, like we never got to the point of coding it actually, but like we spent time understanding try in the first place, the data structure, right? Here I was just basically just, like just trying to fix the bugs. I had no idea what trial. The quality is much better than I expected, honestly. Like with the AI system, probably was significantly better than what I would have thought of. Yeah, well, I was yeah, very helpful. Like if I had to approach a problem in that manner, right, that I'm just sort of moving a bunch of old code and not refactoring it, which I feel like is never the case. Like that's my personal thing that anytime you basically invest that I'm going to move this code and I'm going to move it to a different language, the idea is that either you'd be refactoring the code because you want to sort of clean up some pieces of the code,
Yeah.
or you basically made a choice that, okay, there are parts of the code that are too clunky, too complicated, and I would like to simplify that or break it down into smaller pieces. Right? It's
Right.
never going to be a one-to-one mapping, I think.
Yeah.
But that's my personal preference, right? I
Yeah.
don't know enough about the business, but like I don't think that the mapping is ever one-to-one. That someone says that okay, here's a bunch of Java code and I need to one-to-one convert it into a Python code. I think yeah. Uh, Yeah, like significantly helped me. If I would have tried to write this down from scratch, I don't think like similar to priority queue, I don't think I would been able to finish it because the data structure is relatively more complicated. I don't think it helped me understand the Java code. I don't think so. It didn't taught me anything new about Python. Maybe it's like a method here or two, but I don't think so. I think it definitely made it easy, right? Like, again, depends, right? If the idea is to do a one-to-one mapping, it made it easy.
Yeah.
If it was a more, like, I'm sure there are places in the code where they can just benefit from one-to-one mapping. Like a lot of Java pojos, right? Like they are pretty useless, and I have to do a one-to-one mapping, right? I have to take a Java object and I have to convert it to Python, and all I'm gonna do is basically just do a one-to-one mapping, right? Like I'm taking a Java object from here and I'm converting it to a Python class there.
Yeah.
Right. So in that cases, it's super helpful. Like where the mapping is, relatively straightforward. Or maybe some of the utility classes, right? You're not trying to be smart there, right? You have a bunch of like you have a utility class that's doing a bunch of things, and you'll probably want to do a one-to-one mapping to a Python utility class.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of the business slash logic classes, like especially the business logic, the thing is
Mm-hmm.
maybe not so much over there, but I can definitely see value in utility classes. I can see definitely value in some of the Java objects, especially if there was awareness. I'm not sure if there is, but like in 3.7, I think they have. I'm trying to forget the name here. They have data classes, right? So like a one-to-one mapping between a Java Pojo to a data
Yeah.
class, that would have been definitely helpful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that saves me a ton of stuff. I think one of the other interesting pieces, at least especially with Python, would be if there was integration with MyPy. Like if you just basically do type awareness, right? Because that's the big positive of Java, type
Yeah.
awareness. So if there was like type awareness, right, which is actually the easiest part, right? Because you can just use AST. Like I'm assuming what is happening magic behind the scenes is basically you're going through the Java code, you're understanding the AST, and you're basically trying to map that back to Python.
Yeah.
So you could easily get the type awareness, right? I'm assuming that's how you're basically doing the private, public, and underscore mapping, and like this is a method public or private. But like you can easily get the type awareness, and then you can easily map it back to MyPy, right? So that would have
So
been relatively
type
useful.
awareness in Python, or I think in
Type
Python,
awareness
right?
in Python, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because I think especially if you decided to convert a Java class to a Python class, and I'm just talking about the specific
Yeah.
conversion, right? Then one of the bigger fails would be in doing that, I'll be losing type awareness,
Yeah.
right? So again, I think it's a relatively very small amount of work that needs to go in to build type awareness, and it would like significantly help because like typed Python is helpful.
Yeah.
Do you feel that I definitely made it fast? So was medium work in this task the worst versus the best? I think it was, I won't call it the best of my quality, but yeah, it was good. Like it was helpful. It was good. Actually, I can give it a +2 as well. Again, because you're just basically just doing a one-to-one translation.
Yeah.
I don't know. Basically, majority of the grunt work was done for me already. That's well in place. So as I said again, right, like it's definitely helpful. I can put it down. Uh, uh, I think type control might be another one. Type safety is probably one. I don't think I'm not sure if I should be writing this down, but like it do not. I did not get an impression that I'm learning anything in terms of like understanding of the code. Like all I was doing is basically just one language to another language. So that's
That
fine.
would actually be helpful if you can just write that down as well.
Okay, yeah, sure. So. Uh, I don't know. I think it was enough. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it would have liked differently. Like again, for the purpose of this was good. Uh, uh, I don't know. I'm thinking what else could have been helpful. I think for the job that I did, I think auto-generated test cases would have been really helpful, right? Because we're able to understand the case. Auto-generated test cases would have been helpful. I'm not sure if you could do anything in terms of documentation more than what you did. Like you basically understood what the method is. I'm not sure if you could have taken the complex parts of the logic and basically documented there. I mean,
Yeah, that
again,
would
would have
also
been
be
very
helpful.
generic.
Yeah.
But like, again, helpful documentation. The one that was generated was very uh, so if you're doing an outward facing documentation, maybe like, okay, if you want to explain what like what type is it, what exactly is this, maybe, but like for me, someone who's trying to redo the code wasn't really helpful. Uh, to what extent would AI supported code translation would be helpful? It'll be very helpful. I would say helpful. Uh, not really. I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, like on the code that I'm only using, yeah, maybe helpful. If I had a bunch of like, let me give you a concrete example, and I don't know like why the use case is Java to Python, but like what I would find helpful is I have a bunch of shell scripts. I'd like to modernize them, right? I'd like to modernize them to Python, right?
Yeah.
That'd be helpful because it's
Okay.
hard to find shell script skills. Right? So
Yeah.
that's helpful. That I have either a bunch of shell scripts, you can either convert them to Python or Go or whatever, like a system level programming language. That is super helpful, right? So because now I'm able to leverage from a lower level programming language to a higher level programming language, and I can find skills around that.
Okay, so
So
like
that if I,
languages which are more esoteric, like you wouldn't, so from converting from a language where you don't have much expertise to another one, that in that case it would be helpful.
yeah, to a
Okay.
lower level programming language where you won't get enough people, right? Like if I'm
Yeah.
hiring someone, it's very hard for me to hire someone who knows shell scripting, right?
Right.
So there it will be helpful, like from a shell to a higher level language, right? Like what you write in shell, you can write in Go as well, right?
Yeah.
So that would be helpful, right? Like converting shell scripts to Go, that would be helpful. Or converting, like, well, shell to Python mapping also you can do, but I think shell to Go is probably a better mapping because you can make executables, etc. So that would have
Okay.
been helpful. I'm not sure if I know of enough of use cases where I feel like some code that has been written in Java would be translated to Python. Because if the code was written in Java in the first place, then the idea would have been that we needed type safety. It was a big enterprise system, like it was
Yeah.
a company like IBM. And I'm not sure if there's enough of a justification that okay, we should move this Python code to Java code to Python,
Okay.
unless the code
Yeah.
was written for data science, right? Like okay,
Yeah.
then I can see the value. But like specifically, I think that like these would be helpful. Uh, I'm the other one I was thinking was maybe around. I don't know, like yeah, I don't know. Like this was the I think the use case that struck me that might be helpful. When working on a code that my team members or the other people use. Uh, yeah, I guess that'd be slightly helpful. Uh, Again, I think if the whole idea is these ones I don't know how to answer best, right? But again, if the idea is that you're trying to map a project from one language to another language, like all the utility and the grunt work that has been written, that probably will helpful from it, right? So it's helpful over there, right? But if like logic, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think that I'll prototype code. I just if I'm writing some experimental or prototype code, then I'm already decided on what language I want to use, right? Uh, when I'm converting that experimental or prototype code to maybe like a production level system, then maybe this would have been slightly helpful. But I don't know. When working on a production code, I don't know. Again, like I'm not sure what's the best answer here. When working on a
Okay.
production code. Which situations is where be appropriate? Okay. Uh, Again, I mean, I don't know. I think all of them are slightly appropriate, right? I mean, they just give you a first pass. Like we're converting applications, it's a good first pass, right?
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind. You have to put the effort in, but it's a good pass. When you're trying to convert, like I think it's going to be very appropriate. When you have crazy legacy codes that you're trying to convert, I think it's going to be appropriate because there's going to be enough files that basically are useless. Uh, so this is going to be extremely appropriate, and like the shell scripts and the language that
Right.
I don't think that if I'm not familiar with something, then I want to go with AI. And it's more of a, uh, well, I wouldn't call unfamiliar. I would just say I have lesser expertise in,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I'll probably reword the word like that, like lesser expertise in, because then this would have gotten at a speed much faster than I would have done, right? So
Yeah.
if like because like how you saw my approach, right? Like I did not know the problem, so I just basically just did a copy paste. Right? This is the exactly same thing, right? It's able to do a copy paste and it's able to do it faster than I am. So
Yeah.
I don't know if the performance makes a difference. I mean, the first thing is basically just to get the first pass. So I wouldn't take like a existing code and just run it through AI just to thinking that it will give me a format code.
Right.
Uh, Monolith goes fix one problem, but that doesn't. I'm not sure if I know how to answer these questions. How would you use this kind of AI for your code transfer? I don't think the problems were really like. I don't think uh, I was really worried about the number of problems. Like, yes, a reasonable number of problems would be fine, but I don't think I was. Uh, like, I'm not expecting one problem per 100. Like, even if I find one problem in one method, like 5 lines of code, this is a win for me. So,
Okay.
I think in all the cases, it's just very useful to me. I think even if I find like one problem in like a 5 line method, 10 line method, that's fine. I don't expect it to be good the very first time, so I'll have to take a look at the code.
Right.
But
So you're
I mean,
expecting that
if I'm finding, yeah,
if you're working
like
with AI, you're expecting or you're like
yeah,
preconditioning it with that you will be taking a second pass over it. You will
oh
have
yeah, yeah.
to work. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going with that
Mhm.
assumption that
Yeah.
just to make sure that I'm assuming it's I can't basically just run something that was written on the fly without understanding the logic. So if I'm understanding the logic, if I'm going through it, I'm comparing two things. Syntax is like a minor thing. Like if
Yeah.
the AI has got the business logic right, like the logic right of the code, then syntax is a minor problem for me. I'm not
Yeah.
too worried about the syntax or the issues around those lines. Okay, there. Oh, do the first error. Okay, this is required. All right, it does. Okay, this
Oh, the
one.
first one. Yeah.
I don't know. Slightly appropriate. I, uh, Apple for lower levels. Scripting. I think I already written that Java poses versus. I think I already wrote that somewhere. So okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. There is this final survey, which is the
Yeah.
post-study survey.
Assuming that I'll have to share my screen for that.
Yes, yes, please.
1 second. This one, right?
Yeah, the last link I
Study.
sent you.
Um,
Yep. P18, 18.
Oh yeah. It was translation. Yes, it was definitely better. Interview. Uh, uh, I think the other one might be like a lot of companies, they generally have like when they're doing inter-process communication, they tend to do it via REST. Like two applications are talking using REST, and a lot of them are sort of trying to convert back to say gRPC.
Okay.
Right? So just taking REST endpoints and converting them to gRPC ones. But again, I think that's a very targeted use case. But
still, if you can like put that in, I'm not aware, like I'm not familiar with either. Like REST a little bit, not gRPC. So we'll take a look at that. But if you can like put that.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a stretch. I think that'll just distract you. No, let's not even go there. I think yeah, I think support desire for working with code. I think I'm not sure if you've seen this when working with code, like semantic search has been big. Like I'm not sure if you've seen some of the GitHub work around this.
Yeah.
That you could basically say, find me all the methods that like find me all the get request methods.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I'm not sure if you have seen this, but that's a very interesting area. They wrote a blog around it. This was very interesting.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting, right? Like rather than sort of trying to, so you could basically say, you could basically say, find me all the methods that is reading CSV into pandas data frames.
Yeah.
Right. It'll find you all the methods, right? So they basically talked about this. I think they already have it somewhere running. I don't know. I think they have it somewhere. Like you can do semantic search. So that might be interesting.
Okay.
I'm thinking what else. Our test case generation obviously is huge. Because this is one of the bigger pain points always, test case generation. Purely for AI for code, I'm assuming that I'm not sure if performance can be another one. You can sort of ballpark that how performant this method is going to be, or like what are the, like pretty much every code editor tells you that if you basically say you're doing a find, right? So pretty much every code editor will tell you that do a find using .find.
Yeah.
But like if you can also suggest alternatives that you're doing a find, but these are other methods, and these are methods that you're or like
performance estimation
seen,
and improvement.
Yeah, or basically if you've seen some of the PowerPoint stuff, right? Like you use a template and on the side it basically gives you 5 alternatives. And these are the other ways you can see a slide. So if you say using a method, and you can also say that if you want to do this or this or this, these are the 5 different alternatives. Like if you're doing insert, right? Like you could basically say, okay, you could have done append if you want to do this, or you could have done dot set, or if you could have done like if you're like doing an index lookup, right? So you do curly braces, like you do braces, right? In Python you do square braces, right? But you could also say that if you want to do this. So just that similarity between like the methods, like because otherwise you have to basically look into, like if you've seen Java doc ever, right? Like it says also look, or also look into these, right? But like that is never shown up in the IDE ever. Right. Like IDE never says, it never groups the methods like that. So like just a simple VS Code extension around that okay, you're just grouping them like that. I should probably do a patent around that. Probably might be a good patent idea. But like something like that might be helpful, right? You can just do an extension, but like you just, if you're saying find, and if you hover on find, then like a pop-up opens up on the right that these are the related methods. It's relatively stable. I mean, there's no AI here. You can basically just go to the Java doc and you can just basically pass it like that. Those might be, I don't know. Not sure what similarity in methods. I'm not sure how to document that, right? But you get the point, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Does that matter?
It doesn't, like, I mean, if you prefer to not answer, that's fine.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm a manager at this point of time, but I've done enough programming. So I haven't touched Java in like 5 years. I haven't touched Python in like 2 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, more or less, I would say. I was working on what's an assistant? I'm not sure if I'm providing any helpful information here. Basic awareness. I'm not sure if this is what you were looking for, but this is what I have. I don't anything specifically you were looking here. I can provide more information.
This is
No, I have not provided code translation. Code translation. Yeah, we started looking into it, but never really. Like the try that I said, right? Like we had a
yeah.
Java implementation, and then we were trying to look into Python,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, if you can just like
again,
yeah mention that yes, and then just mention that you started looking at it, but you didn't.
Yeah, but like this
Because
would
we're
have
also
been helpful. This would have been helpful there because I think most of the time we were like, should we do this? The Java implementation is performant enough. Do we want to do this in Python in the first place or not?
Yeah. Because we also want to understand like when you do such a task in the actual world, what process do you go through? Because we're like looking at from a very AI centric point of view, but we also want to understand the actual business process that goes behind it. So
Yeah,
might be
like
useful
again,
if you have that information.
just to give you the context on the business process. The point one is basically understanding try in the first place, right? Like, that's what we started with. Like, okay, the rationale was that most of our code base was in Python, this was in Java, right? So should we move to Python? Right? That was the argument, right? And yes, we started looking around that angle and understood the code, and then we were basically questioning that okay, this code has been well. So part one of this is the people who wrote the code had already left, right? So it's not as if we did not know Java. It's just that we thought that we have become a Python shop mostly. Do we want to maintain some of the Java stuff or not?
Yeah.
Right. So the original people had left, and we looked at the code and I was like, it's just not worth it. Like the amount of work that we'll put in, and versus the benefit that we're going to get, it's probably not worth it, right? So I'll write some of that down.
Okay.
We were Python shop. I can actually point you to the person, and I can actually point you to the code as well. So that would help you that because the try was written on like 5 classes. So I was basically the same logic. There's a try class and a try node class somewhere, but it was written on like 3 classes or 4 classes. Okay. I would love to help out in future as well. Okay. Yeah, I think we got good, right?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to stop the recording now.